If you were to go to the National EPA website, you could find some information about fish advisories and what problems there might be in ingesting fish. Here you could find that some people are at a higher risk than others. So, for example, if you're pregnant or breastfeeding or children or elderly individuals, then there are special concerns about how many fish you should eat, etc. Now, from the government EPA website, you could find geographic regions and fish advisories, but you could also find this at a state per state level. So, for example, if you were to go to New York fish advisories, you could look specifically for New York City, and you could find a page like this. So, here's different species of fish. All right. Here are the general population recommendations and sensitive populations. So, for example, once again, if children or women who are pregnant, and then the list of chemicals of concern. In other videos that I'm producing, I talk about PCBs, DDT, lead, mercury, and other chemicals, many of which undergo biomagnification in that they become concentrated as one proceeds further up a food chain. So humans and bald eagles being at the tops of food chains are at a specific, we're at a heightened risk for these. So as you can see, there are many bodies of water, which they're giving here, where there are fish advisories. And before you eat fish found here, one should take this into concern. There are certain species that one should not eat. There are certain bodies of water that one should not eat from or limit up to one meal a month. Well, that was New York City. If one were to go to other regions of New York, here you can see the counties list once again. So these are, state EPA guidelines, and sometimes it's state EPA, sometimes it's the state Department of Health. But if you type in your state and fish advisory, typically you can find an area which will list where are the bodies of water, what fish this applies to, who is faced by an advisory, and the chemicals of concern. So here you see mercury and PCB. So, there might have been chemical factories which released, what was released into the Hudson River might differ from what was released into the Chesapeake Bay or the Great Lakes, etc. But here one can see that, there are many fish meals that sometimes in general people should not eat, or certainly if you are, children, pregnant women, the elderly, etc. And so this indicates that we have chemically polluted our environment to the point where eating fish is not necessarily safe for us with those parameters. Certain species, certain bodies of water, maybe some populations more than others. But if you scroll down county by county by county, one can see that there are fish advisories. Before you eat fish caught in the wild, one could consider these. Well, that was New York State. If one were to then view Virginia, once again, this is typical here. They're listing the pages here, but here you can see the Chesapeake Bay, water bodies, etc. The contaminants, they might be mercury, PCBs, etc. And, which species this affects and what is then recommended. Do not eat or eat less than 2 meals per month. And this goes on page after page after page. Here you can see a map with different color codes for different um, contaminants. Once again, just hitting home that no matter where you live, uh, we have put things into our environment. Some of these can even travel in the air great distances. So, mercury can be spread throughout the atmosphere, even can cross oceans. And so some of this contamination might actually have originated in other parts of the globe. So that was information from from Virginia. Here you can see information from Florida. Once again, here are water bodies in different counties, which species are affected, women of childbearing age, um, young children, other individuals, the contaminant of concern. You see a great deal of mercury uh, here. Once again, I'm not trying to give a review of all of these, but merely point out that, especially I've encountered many people don't know about this, that before you go fishing in a specific area, there might be a fish advisory issued by that state, the state's EPA, the State Department of Health. So here you can see in Florida, there's an awful lot of ones on mercury, um, etc. If you were to go to South Carolina, one can find similar lists, including this one, which has a map with, red being mercury, green being PCBs, etc. And you can see by the area here. In Texas, the same thing would apply. There are certainly fish advisories here. All right, so for dioxins, for PCBs, et cetera. One can scroll down to the different areas here. If one were to go to Michigan, once again, the Great Lakes might have specific um, a specific recommendation. So, for example, here is a contaminant in the Great Lakes, and as a result, there were some advisories here. So once again, this was just an introduction into this concept where the chemical pollution of our world has reached the point where eating fish from the wild is problematic for us potentially. And if that is the case, how much more so for the wildlife? Bald eagles obviously can't see these fish advisories and migrate accordingly. So while we have the luxury of limiting fish intake from a specific body of water or a specific number of times, then the wildlife which are feeding on fish, whether it be otters and mink, whether it be great blue herons, bald eagles, osprey, etc. Obviously, they are accumulating mercury and PCBs and these other contaminants.